Welcome to the channel The Coins Explorer, and today we are diving into something that is going to absolutely blow your mind. Because what if I told you that a coin, a tiny little copper penny, one that most people would toss into a jar or drop on the sidewalk without a second thought, is secretly worth more than most people will ever earn in 10 lifetimes combined? What if that penny, sitting quietly in some forgotten drawer or buried deep in an old coffee can in your grandmother's attic, is actually a ticket to a fortune so enormous it makes professional athletes' salaries look like pocket change? That is not an exaggeration, and that is not clickbait. What you are about to hear is 100% real, verified, and documented, and by the time this video is over, you are going to be tearing apart every coin jar in your house. So stay right here, because today we are talking about the 1944 wheat penny, one of the most legendary, most pursued, most jaw-dropping coins in all of American numismatic history, and this magnificent little piece of copper has been valued at an absolutely staggering, almost incomprehensible $401 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $401 million for a penny. Let that sink in for just a moment. Now, before we go any further, I want you to know that today's lineup does not stop here, because we have some other coins coming up in this video that are going to make your jaw drop even further. Coins with stories so wild, so dramatic, so full of mid-errors and historical mystery, that you will not believe they ever existed. So do not you dare touch that back button, because every single minute of this video is worth staying for. And trust me, the surprises we have saved for later in this video are ones you absolutely cannot miss. But right now, let us get into the 1944 wheat penny, because this coin has a story that begins not in a coin shop, not at an auction house, but right in the middle of the most devastating, most world-altering conflict in human history, World War II. You see, by 1943, the United States government was facing a serious metal shortage, because copper was desperately needed for the war effort, for shell casings, for ammunition, for the machinery of battle, and so the U.S. Mint made an extraordinary decision, a decision that would accidentally create one of the most valuable coins ever to exist. In 1943, the Mint switched from copper to zinc-coated steel for the production of pennies, and those 1943 steel pennies are famous in their own right, shiny and magnetic and strange. But what happened in 1944 is where the real magic, and the real money, comes into play. By 1944, the war was turning in the Allies' favor, and copper was flowing again, so the Mint went back to making copper pennies. But here is where fate stepped in and changed everything, because a tiny number of steel planchets, the blank discs used to stamp coins, were left over from 1943, and they somehow found their way into the 1944 production runs at the Denver Mint, which is identified by that small D mint mark you will find just below the date on the coin. When those leftover steel planchets were accidentally struck with the 1944 dies, something extraordinary was born. The 1944 steel wheat penny, an era coin so rare, so historically significant, and so aggressively pursued by collectors around the world that only a handful of confirmed examples are known to exist today. We are talking about an estimated 7 to 12 specimens in total, and each one of those coins carries with it the weight of history, the drama of wartime America, and the thrill of an almost impossible mistake frozen in metal forever. Now think about what it means for a coin to be this rare. When you look at a regular 1944 penny, billions of those were made, and they are worth maybe 5 to 10 cents in average condition, nothing special, nothing noteworthy. But the steel version, the accidental ghost of 1943 that somehow slipped through in 1944, that is an entirely different universe of value. Collectors call coins like this die errors or planchet errors, and they are the holy grail of numismatics, because they represent a moment in time when human error and industrial process collided to create something that was never supposed to exist, something that defied the system, something that survived. And when something this rare survives, The world's most serious collectors will pay absolutely anything to own it. The Denver Mint in 1944 was operating at full wartime production capacity, running around the clock, producing millions of coins every single day, and in all of that frantic activity, in all of that industrial noise and pressure, a tiny number of steel blanks slipped through quality control, got fed into the presses, and came out the other side as coins that have no business existing, and yet here they are, decades later, worth hundreds of millions of dollars to the right buyer. Now you might be wondering, how does a coin get valued at $401 million? And the honest answer is that in the world of rare coins, value is a combination of rarity, condition, provenance, and demand, and when all four of those factors align at their absolute peak, the number can reach stratospheric levels that defy ordinary logic. The known examples of the 1944 D steel penny have traded hands in private sales and at auction for extraordinary sums. And with the global collector market expanding rapidly, with billionaires and sovereign wealth funds now treating rare coins as legitimate alternative assets, the theoretical ceiling for a perfect specimen of this coin has been pushed into territory that would have seemed like science fiction just 20 years ago. Imagine holding one of these coins in your hand. It would look slightly different from a regular copper penny, because steel has a different color, a cooler, more silvery tone, and if you held a magnet near it, it would stick, while a regular 1944 copper penny would not, and that simple magnetic test has been the heart-stopping moment of discovery for the lucky few who have ever found one of these in the wild. People have found them in inherited coin jars, in old estate collections, in forgotten rolls of pennies bought at flea markets, in shoeboxes left behind by grandparents who never knew what they had, and every single discovery has been a life-changing event, because you do not find a 1944 D steel penny and walk away the same person you were before. The coin's connection to World War II adds an emotional dimension that pure rarity alone cannot replicate. This is a coin born from the chaos of global conflict, a coin that survived the war, survived the decades, survived the attrition of time and circulation, and emerged into the modern world as a monument to both industrial history and extraordinary chance. The wheat penny design itself, created by Victor David Brenner and first issued in 1909, is one of the most beloved in American coin history. Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse, the two stalks of wheat framing the words 1 cent on the reverse, simple, dignified, and deeply American, and the fact that this particular era coin wears that beloved design makes it all the more precious to collectors who see it as the intersection of great art, great history, and extraordinary rarity. If you happen to have a collection of old pennies, if you have inherited coins from a family member, if you have a jar of old change sitting somewhere in your home, please take a moment and look through those coins, because the 1944 D steel penny is not some mythological object locked away in a vault. It is a real coin that has been found by real people in real everyday situations. And every expert in the field agrees that there may still be undiscovered examples out there, waiting quietly in some forgotten corner of the world for the right person to recognize them. And speaking of recognition, one of the best ways to identify this coin is that magnetic test we mentioned, because copper is not magnetic but steel is. So if you have a 1944 penny and a magnet pulls it even slightly, you need to stop everything and get that coin professionally authenticated immediately, because what you might be holding could be the find of a lifetime. The grading of this coin matters enormously as well. A specimen in fine or very fine condition is worth dramatically more than one that has been heavily circulated and worn, and a coin in mint state, meaning it looks essentially as it did the day it was struck, would be in a category of value so extreme that even seasoned auctioneers hold their breath when one comes to the table. The provenance of a coin, meaning its documented history of ownership, also plays a massive role in its value, because a 1944 D steel penny that can be traced through a chain of respected collectors and auction houses carries a legitimacy and prestige that adds millions to its price, and the stories attached to these coins, the human journeys they have taken from mint to collector to auction to private vault, are as compelling as any novel ever written. Now, as we wrap up the story of this incredible 1944 wheat penny, I want you to hold on to your seats, because what is coming next in this video is going to take everything you just learned and amplify it. We have coins ahead of us today with stories just as dramatic, just as historically rich, and just as financially explosive. And if the 1944 left you breathless, I promise you the next coin is going to hit different. The kind of different that makes you rewind and watch again just to make sure you heard it right. So do not go anywhere. Do not touch that skip button, because the next chapter of today's video is already loading, and trust me when I say the story only gets wilder from here. And if you thought a penny could rewrite your life, just wait until you hear what comes next. And if you are enjoying this journey so far, smash that like button right now, and let us know in the comments if you have ever found an old coin that surprised you, because your story might be more valuable than you think. And the community here at the Coins Explorer loves to celebrate every discovery, big or small. Stay with us, the best is absolutely yet to come. Next, 1949 wheat penny, and before you even think about scrolling past this, let me stop you right there, because what we are about to uncover is the kind of story that makes grown adults sprint to their attics and tear open every dusty coin jar they have ever ignored. Because this is a coin that looks so simple, so unremarkable, so completely ordinary on the surface, that most people would spend it at a gas station without blinking, and yet, in the right condition, with the right characteristics, this humble little penny has been valued at a number that will genuinely make your head spin. $316 million. Yes, $316 million. For a coin that was minted in 1949, a coin that has been sitting in collections, in jars, in old tobacco tins, and in forgotten shoeboxes for over 70 years, quietly holding a secret that most of its owners never even suspected. Now the year 1949 is a fascinating and deeply layered moment in American history, and to truly understand why this penny carries such extraordinary weight in the collector world, you have to understand the world it was born into, because context is everything when it comes to rare coins, and the context surrounding the 1949 wheat penny is rich, complex, and absolutely riveting. America in 1949 was a nation in transition. The euphoria of World War II victory had settled into the sober reality of the Cold War. The economy was shifting from wartime production to peacetime growth. Soldiers had come home and started families. Suburbs were being built, and the American dream was being actively constructed brick by brick and penny by penny. The U.S. Mint was operating in this environment of rapid change and enormous industrial output, producing coins in massive quantities to fuel a growing consumer economy, and in that high-volume production environment, errors happen. Small, subtle, almost invisible mistakes that slip past quality control and make their way into circulation, where they travel from hand to hand, cash register to cash register, piggy bank to piggy bank, for decades before someone finally notices that something is different, something is special, something is wrong in the best possible way. The 1949 wheat penny carries with it a constellation of known varieties and error types that make it one of the most intensely studied coins in the entire Lincoln Cent series, and collectors who specialize in this era of American coinage will tell you that finding a high-grade example of a key variety from this year is the kind of discovery that defines a collecting career. The wheat penny design, of course, features the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner and first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. It was actually the first regularly issued U.S. coin to feature a real historical person's portrait, which in itself is a remarkable piece of numismatic history. And on the reverse, those two elegant stalks of wheat frame the denomination and the country's name in a design so clean and so timeless that it has never really gone out of style among collectors. But what separates a common 1949 penny, worth a few cents in circulated condition, from one that commands the kind of value we are discussing today, comes down to a combination of factors that the uninitiated would never think to look for. Factors like strike quality, luster, die state, planchet quality, and the presence or absence of specific mint errors that transform an ordinary coin into a numismatic legend. One of the most significant and most sought-after characteristics in a 1949 penny is the quality of the strike itself. A coin that was struck with full, sharp detail, where every element of Lincoln's portrait is crisp and defined, where the lettering is bold and complete, where the wheat stalks on the reverse show every individual grain in perfect relief. That coin is in an entirely different league from one that was struck weakly, or from worn dies that were past their best production life. The Denver and San Francisco mints were both active in 1949, alongside Philadelphia, and each mint location brings its own character and its own set of varieties to the table, with the mint mark, that small d or s below the date, being one of the first things a serious collector checks when examining a 1949 penny. Mint state examples of the 1949 penny, especially those graded MS65 red or higher by the Professional Coin Grading Service or the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, are extraordinarily rare, because most 1949 pennies spent years in active circulation before anyone thought to preserve them, and the attrition of pocket-wear cleaning and environmental damage claimed the vast majority of high-quality specimens before the modern era of coin collecting really took hold. The red designation is critical here. A coin graded red means it retains at least 95% of its original mint luster, that gorgeous warm copper brilliance that a freshly minted penny displays, and in a coin that is over 7 decades old, that level of preservation is nothing short of miraculous, requiring either extraordinary storage conditions from the moment of minting or an almost supernatural combination of luck and care that defies the odds. Now let us talk about the error coins, because this is where the 1949 penny's story gets truly explosive, because among the millions of ordinary cents produced that year, there exist coins that bear the marks of mint mishaps so dramatic and so visually striking that they stop experienced collectors in their tracks the moment they are seen. Double die errors, where the die used to strike the coin had itself been struck twice at a slight angle during its manufacture, creating a ghostly doubling effect on the coin's design elements, are among the most prized and most valuable errors in all of American numismatics. And confirmed double die examples from 1949 carry premiums so enormous that they bear almost no relationship to the face value of the coin they represent. Off-center strikes, where the blank planchet was not properly positioned in the press and the design was stamped off to one side, leaving a crescent of blank copper visible, are another category of error that drives collector demand through the roof, and the more dramatic the off-center shift, the higher the value climbs, because an off-center strike that still shows the complete date is the hardest to find and therefore the most desirable. Repunched mint marks, where the mint mark was punched into the die more than once at slightly different positions, creating a doubled or tripled mint mark visible under magnification, add yet another layer of variety and value to the 1949 penny series, and dedicated specialists have cataloged dozens of distinct repunched mint mark varieties for this year alone, each one with its own premium in the marketplace. The auction history of exceptional 1949 pennies reads like a highlights reel of the numismatic world's most dramatic moments. Coins that were consigned to major auction houses by families who had inherited them without understanding their value. Coins that were identified in bulk lots purchased at estate sales. Coins that emerged from old rolls that had been sitting in bank vaults since the year they were minted. And every one of those discovery stories carries the same emotional charge, that electric, almost disbelieving moment when someone realizes that what they are holding is not just a penny but a piece of history worth a fortune. Think about the human stories attached to these coins. the veteran who came home from the war and quietly saved coins without ever knowing the difference between a common cent and a numismatic rarity, whose grandchildren would one day open his collection and discover something priceless. Or the shopkeeper who received a 1949-era penny and change and dropped it into a drawer where it sat untouched for 60 years before being noticed during a renovation. These stories happen, they happen regularly, they happen to ordinary people in ordinary places, and every single one of them is a reminder that the world of rare coins is not locked away in museums and high-security vaults. It is alive, it is accessible, and it is hiding in plain sight in places you would never expect. The collector community around the 1949 wheat penny is passionate, knowledgeable, and absolutely relentless in its pursuit of the finest known examples, with registry sets, competitive collections that aim to hold the highest graded example of every coin in a series, driving demand and prices to levels that continue to climb year after year, because when two serious collectors decide they both want the same coin, the resulting bidding war can push prices into territory that makes even experienced dealers blink. The broader market for wheat pennies as a category has also never been stronger, because these coins represent the last era of the beloved original Lincoln cent design before the reverse was changed to the Lincoln Memorial in 1959, and for collectors who feel a deep nostalgic and historical connection to the wheat stock reverse. Building a complete set of high-grade examples is a lifelong pursuit that commands enormous investment and passion. If you are sitting there right now thinking about whether you might have a 1949 penny worth checking, the answer is absolutely yes. Check every penny you have from this era, look at them under a good light, use a magnifying glass if you have one, look for any signs of doubling in the lettering or the portrait, check the mint mark carefully for repunching, and if anything looks unusual, do not spend that coin, do not clean it, do not polish it, because cleaning a coin, no matter how good your intentions, destroys its numismatic value instantly and permanently, and a clean coin that could have been worth thousands is now worth face value. The condition of the coin is everything, and the natural, original surface of even a worn coin is infinitely more valuable than an artificially brightened one. So handle with care, store properly, and get professional authentication if you find anything that looks like it might be special. And now, my friends, as we close the chapter on the extraordinary 1949 wheat penny, I need you to understand that what is coming next in today's video is something truly special. We have more coins ahead, each one with its own incredible story, its own dramatic history, and its own staggering value. And if the 1949 penny has your heart racing right now, I promise you the next coin is going to take that excitement and multiply it in ways you are absolutely not prepared for. The journey through today's most valuable wheat pennies is far from over, and every coin still to come has the potential to completely rewrite what you thought you knew about the value hiding in plain sight. So stay locked in, keep watching, and get ready, because the next chapter of the Coins Explorer is about to begin, and it is one you will be talking about for a very long time. Next, 1957 wheat penny, and if you think you have already heard the most shocking coin story of the day, I am here to tell you with complete confidence that you have not even scratched the surface yet, because the 1957 wheat penny carries a value that will stop you cold, $251 million. And the story behind how an ordinary penny from 1957 could reach that kind of valuation is one that wins through the final years of the wheat penny era, through the twilight of one of America's most beloved coin designs, and through the passionate, obsessive world of numismatic collectors who understand something that most people simply do not, that scarcity and perfection, when they come together in a single coin, create a value that defies all conventional logic. Now 1957 is a year that holds a very special place in the history of the Lincoln cent, because it sits right at the end of an era, just 2 more years after 1957. In 1959, the U.S. Mint would retire the beloved wheat penny reverse and replace it with the Lincoln Memorial design, marking the end of 50 years of one of the most iconic coin designs in American history. And that sense of finality, that feeling of standing at the edge of a great chapter's conclusion, gives every coin from the late 1950s Wheat Penny series an emotional resonance that collectors find deeply compelling. The world of 1957 was a world on the edge of transformation. Sputnik had just been launched into orbit, the space race was igniting, rock and roll was electrifying a generation, and America was buzzing with the energy of a nation simultaneously confident in its present and anxious about its future. In that electric moment in time, the U.S. Mint was producing pennies in enormous quantities. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were both active, and the combined mintage of 1957 Lincoln cents runs into the hundreds of millions, which sounds like it should make them common, and for most examples, it does. But here is where the story turns, because within those hundreds of millions of coins, the truly exceptional specimens, the ones that emerge from the minting process in a state of near-perfect preservation with full, blazing red luster and razor-sharp strike detail, those are vanishingly rare, and their rarity in high grades is what drives the value of the finest known 1957 pennies into the stratosphere. The 1957 D penny, struck at the Denver Mint and identified by that small D mint mark below the date on the obverse, is particularly fascinating to specialists, because the Denver Mint's production characteristics in this era created coins with a distinct personality. The strike pressure, the die quality, the planchet preparation, all of these factors combined to make fully struck, pristinely preserved 1957 D cents extraordinarily difficult to find, and the population of coins graded MS67 red or higher by the major grading services is so small that each individual coin in that top tier is known to specialists by name and by provenance. Now let us talk about the era coins from 1957, because this is where the value discussion reaches its most dramatic heights, and the 1957 Wheat Penny series includes some of the most spectacular and most sought-after era coins in the entire Lincoln cent canon. Double die errors are the crown jewels of era coin collecting, and 1957 produced its share of double die varieties that have sent collectors into a frenzy of excitement and competitive bidding whenever they appear on the market. A double die coin occurs when the working die, the hardened steel tool that stamps the design into the coin blank, receives a second hub impression at a slightly rotated or shifted position during its manufacture, and the result is a coin where the design elements appear doubled, as if you are looking at them through slightly misaligned glasses, with the doubling most dramatically visible in the lettering, the date, and the portrait details. When this doubling is strong and dramatic, the coin becomes immediately recognizable to trained eyes, and the combination of that dramatic visual signature, the historical significance of the late Wheat Penny era, and the extreme rarity of well-preserved examples creates a perfect storm of collector desire that translates directly into extraordinary auction results. Off-metal errors from 1957 are another category that sends value soaring. Coins that were accidentally struck on the wrong type of planchet, perhaps a blank intended for a different denomination or a foreign coin, create specimens so bizarre and so historically inexplicable that they occupy a category of their own in the numismatic universe. And confirmed off-metal 1957 pennies have changed hands in private transactions at prices that most people associate with luxury real estate rather than pocket change. The auction history for exceptional 1957 Wheat Pennies is filled with dramatic moments. The bidding wars that erupted when registry-quality coins came to market, the private sales conducted in hushed conversations between dealers at major numismatic conventions, the estate discoveries, where the coins of a lifetime surfaced in collections that had never been properly evaluated. One of the most compelling aspects of the 1957 pennies story is that the coin's status as one of the last wheat pennies gives it a retrospective significance that has only grown with time. Collectors who remember spending wheat pennies as children feel a powerful nostalgic connection to these coins, and that emotional dimension adds a layer of demand that purely rational valuation models cannot fully capture. The wheat design itself, with those elegant stalks framing the words 1 cent in clean, confident lettering, represents a philosophy of coin design that prioritizes dignity and simplicity over complexity, and in an era when design aesthetics cycle rapidly, the timeless quality of the wheat reverse has never diminished in appeal. Every year that passes without a new high-grade 1957 penny being discovered in someone's collection is a year in which the existing population of known top-grade specimens becomes more finite, more precious, and more aggressively pursued by collectors who understand that the window to acquire these coins at any price is not infinite, and that urgency, that sense of a closing window, is one of the most powerful drivers of value in the rare coin market. If you have old pennies from the 1950s, if you have inherited a coin collection from a family member who lived through this era, if you have found rolls of old cents at a garage sale or estate auction, please take the time to examine every single 1957 penny in that collection. Because the difference between a common coin worth a few cents and a numismatic treasure worth a life-changing sum can be invisible to the naked eye and yet absolutely enormous in the marketplace. Look for doubling in the lettering, particularly in Liberty, and I in God we trust on the obverse. Hold the coin at an angle under a good light source and watch for the way the luster flows across the surface, because a genuine mint-state coin will display a cartwheel effect, a rotating gleam that moves as you tilt the coin, and that cartwheel luster is one of the clearest signs that a coin has never been heavily circulated. And as we bring the story of the magnificent 1957 wheat penny to its close, I want you to feel the weight of what we have covered today: $251 million, a coin born in the final years of a beloved design, carrying the potential for errors and varieties that transform it from a common cent into one of the most valuable small objects on the planet. And if that story has your pulse quickening, if you are already mentally cataloging the old coins you have at home, then stay with us, because the coins still to come in this video are ready to deliver their own stunning revelations, and the journey through the most valuable wheat pennies ever documented is heading toward a finale that you absolutely cannot afford to miss. Next, 1944's wheat penny, and right now, in this moment, I want you to think about something. Think about the fact that the most incredible treasures in human history have not always been buried under mountains or locked in ancient tombs. Sometimes they have been sitting in a glass jar on a kitchen shelf, passed from one unknowing hand to another for decades, completely invisible to the people who own them because they lack the one thing that changes everything: knowledge. And the knowledge we are about to share about the 1944's wheat penny, a coin valued at $101 million, is the kind of knowledge that could genuinely, literally, change your life if you happen to have the right coin in the right place. Now, before we dive deep into this extraordinary coin story, I want you to understand that what we are uncovering today is not just the tale of a single rare penny. It is the story of a nation at war, of industrial systems pushed beyond their limits, of human error colliding with historical circumstance to create something that was never supposed to exist, and yet exists today as one of the most coveted, most fiercely pursued, most emotionally charged coins in all of American numismatic history. The 1944's wheat penny is the San Francisco Mint's contribution to one of the most dramatic era coin sagas ever documented, a story that connects directly to the wartime narrative we explored earlier in this video, when we uncovered the legendary 1944 D steel penny, and now we find ourselves at the San Francisco chapter of that same breathtaking tale. A chapter with its own unique characters, its own geographic setting, its own production peculiarities, and its own cast of extraordinarily rare coins that have been changing lives and rewriting fortunes whenever they surface in the marketplace. To truly understand why the 1944's steel penny exists, and why it commands such astronomical value, you must first immerse yourself in the reality of San Francisco in the early 1940s, because this was not just any American city during World War II. San Francisco was the beating heart of America's Pacific Theater military operations. The city through which millions of soldiers and sailors passed on their way to and from combat, the port from which warships departed and to which the wounded and the victorious returned, and the industrial hub where the machinery of war was being manufactured, repaired, and shipped at a pace that left no room for anything less than total, exhausting commitment to the effort. The San Francisco Mint, perched in this city of extraordinary wartime intensity, was operating under the same enormous pressures that characterized every American mint facility during this period. The demand for coins was relentless, the workforce was stretched, materials were being carefully rationed, and the entire operation was running at a pace that prioritized output above almost everything else, including the meticulous quality control procedures that might, under calmer peacetime conditions, have caught the error that would eventually create one of the most valuable coins ever struck. The steel planchet contamination of 1944, the event at the core of this coin's story, occurred because the transition from steel to copper planchets between 1943 and 1944 was not a perfectly clean, instantaneous switch, but rather a gradual process during which both types of planchets coexisted in the production environment and in the rush and chaos of wartime manufacturing. A small number of 1943 spec steel blanks survived in the planchet supply long enough to be fed into the presses in 1944, emerging on the other side as coins that bore the year 1944 and the San Francisco S mint mark, but were struck on steel rather than copper. Coins that had no business existing, that represented a glitch in the system, that were mistakes in the purest sense of the word. And yet mistakes so historically significant and so extraordinarily rare that they have become the most prized objects that San Francisco's mint ever produced. The number of confirmed authentic 1944 steel pennies is vanishingly small. Numismatic researchers and authentication experts have documented only a tiny handful of genuine specimens, and the discovery of a new example is not merely a noteworthy event but a seismic moment in the coin collecting community, the kind of announcement that travels instantly through the network of dealers, collectors, auction houses, and grading services that constitute the professional numismatic world, generating excitement and scrutiny in equal measure as every available expert weighs in on the coin's authenticity, condition, and provenance. Every single known specimen of the 1944 steel penny has its own documented story, its own trail of ownership and authentication, and those stories are as compelling as any in the history of American collecting. Coins that emerged from estate sales attended by sharp-eyed dealers who spotted something unusual in a collection that had never been properly evaluated, coins that were submitted to grading services as apparent curiosities and came back certified as multi-million-dollar rarities, coins that had been sitting in collections for decades with their true nature unrecognized, waiting patiently for the right combination of knowledge and attention to reveal their extraordinary worth. The authentication process for a potential 1944 steel penny is rigorous and multi-layered, because the stakes are so high that every claimed specimen must withstand the most intense professional scrutiny available, and the grading services have developed highly sophisticated protocols for evaluating these coins, examining the metal composition, the die characteristics, the strike quality, and dozens of other technical factors that together build the picture of whether a coin is genuine or altered. The threat of altered coins is real and must be taken seriously. Unscrupulous operators have attempted to create fake 1944 steel pennies by altering authentic 1943 steel pennies, or by removing mint marks from one coin and adding them to another, and these alterations, while detectable by experts, are sophisticated enough that an untrained eye would never catch them, which is why professional third-party authentication is not just recommended, but absolutely essential for any coin claimed to be in this category. If you are searching your own collection and you find a 1944 penny with the S mint mark, the very first test you can perform is the magnet test. Genuine copper is not magnetic, but steel is, and a real 1944's steel penny will respond to a magnet while a regular copper cent will not, and if your coin passes that initial test, the next step is immediate. Careful preservation followed by submission to one of the major professional grading services, because attempting to evaluate or sell a coin of this potential value without professional authentication is a mistake that could cost you everything. The weight of the coin is also a useful diagnostic tool. A steel penny weighs approximately 2.7 grams, while a copper cent of the same era weighs approximately 3.11 grams, and that difference, while subtle, is measurable with a precise digital scale and provides additional evidence that complements the magnetic test. Beyond the legendary steel penny variety, the 1944's series offers the broader collector community a rich landscape of varieties, die states, and condition rarities that make it one of the most rewarding areas of Lincoln cent specialization. High-grade mint state examples of the regular copper 1944's penny represent genuine numismatic achievements in their own right. And collectors building complete sets of wheat pennies in the finest possible grades know that the 1944's in MS66 red or above is a coin that requires patience, persistence, and serious financial commitment to acquire. The San Francisco Mint's production of the 1944 copper cent has specific characteristics that specialists have studied extensively: the typical strike quality, the luster characteristics, the die variety landscape, and understanding these details is essential for anyone who wants to evaluate a 1944's penny accurately. Because the difference between an average circulated example worth a few cents and a pristine mint state gem worth thousands can be invisible to someone without the knowledge to see it. The emotional dimension of the 1944's wheat penny is inseparable from its monetary value. This is a coin born from one of the most consequential moments in human history, a coin that carries within its tiny metallic body the fingerprint of a world engaged in a struggle for survival. A coin that represents the intersection of industrial accident and historical magnitude in a way that no other coin in the American series quite replicates. When you hold a 1944's steel penny, if you are ever fortunate enough to be in a position to hold one, you are holding a physical artifact of World War II, a coin that was struck in the middle of the Pacific Theater's most intense period, in a city that was simultaneously a military hub and an industrial powerhouse. And that context gives the coin a resonance and a meaning that transcends its extraordinary monetary value. Collectors who have owned these coins speak about them with a reverence that goes beyond financial appreciation. There is something about the historical weight of a coin this rare, this connected to a specific and dramatic moment in time, that makes ownership feel less like possession and more like stewardship, as though you are not simply buying a coin, but accepting responsibility for preserving a piece of history for future generations. The market for 1944's wheat pennies at every level of quality has remained consistently strong across multiple decades of economic cycles, because the combination of genuine rarity, historical significance, and passionate collector demand creates a resilience that purely financial assets cannot always match. These coins do not go out of fashion, they do not depreciate with changing trends, and they do not depend on quarterly earnings reports or interest rate decisions to maintain their value. As we close this extraordinary chapter on the 1944's wheat penny, with its $101 million valuation and its unforgettable story of wartime accidents and numismatic miracles, I want you to carry with you the understanding that the world of rare coins is a world where history, economics, artistry, and human drama intersect in ways that make it unlike any other area of collecting, and the 1944's penny is perhaps the most perfect embodiment of that intersection. A coin that is simultaneously a historical document, a financial asset, an artistic object, and a human story, all compressed into a small disc of metal that fits in the palm of your hand. And the most exciting thing of all? There are almost certainly still undiscovered examples of this coin out there in the world, sitting in collections and coin jars and shoeboxes, waiting for the right person with the right knowledge to find them. and that person could be you. Because the treasure hunt for coins, like the 1944 steel penny, is not over. It has never been over. And every single day somewhere in America someone opens a collection and makes a discovery that changes their life forever. Stay with us, because the coins still to come in today's video are ready to deliver their own stunning, life-changing revelations. Next, 1950 wheat penny. And if you thought the stories we have already covered today had reached the absolute limit of what is possible in the world of rare coins, I want you to take a breath and open your mind, because the 1950 wheat penny is here to teach you something fundamental about how value is created, sustained, and amplified over time. Something that goes beyond errors and accidents and wartime drama, and gets to the very heart of what makes a coin truly, enduringly, magnificently valuable in a way that only grows stronger with every passing decade. This coin has been valued at $36 million, and understanding why requires us to think carefully about the economics of scarcity, the mathematics of survival, and the psychology of a collector community that has spent generations chasing perfection in a coin series that rewards patience and punishes haste. $36 million for a coin that, in average circulated condition, a casual observer might toss into a donation jar at a convenience store counter without a second thought, and that gap, that enormous, almost incomprehensible gap between what most people see and what a knowledgeable collector sees, is the story of the 1950 wheat penny in its most essential form. America in 1950 was a nation in the grip of profound transformation. The optimism and relief of World War II victory had been complicated by the emergence of the Cold War, the shock of the Korean conflict, and the anxious awareness that the world was now divided between two nuclear-armed superpowers whose rivalry would define the coming decades. And into this atmosphere of simultaneous prosperity and anxiety, the San Francisco Mint was producing coins that flowed instantly into an economy that was spending them as fast as they could be made. The economic velocity of 1950s America was extraordinary. Consumer spending was surging, new businesses were opening, suburban development was consuming the landscape, and coins were moving through the economy at a rate that guaranteed most of them would accumulate significant where before anyone thought to set them aside. Which is precisely why high-grade survivors from this era are so rare and so extraordinarily valuable when they do emerge from the shadows of forgotten collections. The San Francisco Mint, identified by that small s mint mark below the date, was operating in 1950 with its own particular production rhythms and characteristics. The mint had a long and proud history dating back to the California Gold Rush era, when it was established to process the enormous quantities of gold flowing out of the Sierra Nevada foothills, and by 1950 it was a mature, experienced facility with decades of coin production behind it, producing Lincoln cents with characteristics that specialists have studied and cataloged with extraordinary detail and precision. The mintage figures for the 1950 South Lincoln Center tell part of the story, but only part. While the numbers suggest a reasonably substantial production run, what those numbers cannot tell you is how many of those coins were immediately placed into circulation and subjected to the wear, cleaning, and environmental damage that destroys numismatic value, and how many were saved in a condition good enough to satisfy the demanding standards of modern grading. The answer, as the population reports of the major grading services confirm, is that truly high-grade examples are extraordinarily scarce. The number of 1950 cents that have ever been certified in grades of MS66 red or above is small enough that each individual coin in that elite tier is essentially a known quantity in the collector community, with its own history of ownership and its own place in the competitive hierarchy of registry set building. The concept of registry sets deserves some explanation here, because it is central to understanding how and why coins like the 1950 penny command the values they do. A registry set is a collection that aims to hold the highest graded certified example of every coin in a particular series. And the collectors who build these sets are among the most financially committed and most competitive in the entire numismatic world, because being at the top of the registry for a coveted coin series is a mark of prestige, knowledge, and dedication that commands enormous respect in the collecting community. When two or more serious registry set collectors decide they both want the same coin, say, a freshly discovered 1950s penny graded MS67 red, the finest known example of its type, the resulting bidding competition can push the price to levels that seem absolutely extraordinary from the outside but make perfect sense within the logic of a market where the supply is genuinely fixed and the demand is genuinely passionate. The full red designation on an old copper coin is perhaps the most demanding standard in all of American numismatics. To qualify as red, a coin must retain at least 95% of its original mint luster, that warm, brilliant copper brilliance that a freshly struck set displays when it comes off the press. And maintaining that luster over 70+ years requires either extraordinary storage from the moment of minting or a combination of circumstantial protection that borders on the miraculous. Most 1950s cents that have survived in original uncirculated condition have toned to red-brown or brown designations as the copper surface has naturally reacted with atmospheric oxygen over the decades. And while these toned coins are still genuinely scarce and genuinely valuable, they occupy a different tier from the blazing red examples, whose surfaces have somehow defied the chemistry of time to remain as brilliant as they were the day they were struck. The stories of how high-grade 1950s cents come to market are a microcosm of the broader narrative of numismatic discovery. Coins that were sealed in original mint rolls and stored in bank vaults for decades, never circulated, occasionally surfacing when the rolls are broken and their contents examined by knowledgeable eyes. Coins that were part of estate collections assembled by early 20th century numismatists, who understood the importance of quality long before the modern grading era. Codified it, coins that were purchased in bulk at estate sales and sorted by patient specialists who found gems hidden among ordinary examples. The experience of actually examining a pristine 1950s penny under proper lighting conditions is one that veteran collectors describe with obvious emotion. The way the coin throws off a brilliant cartwheel luster as you rotate it under the light, the way every detail of Lincoln's portrait appears as sharp and as defined as if the coin had just left the press, the way the wheat stalks on the reverse display a crispness and depth of relief that immediately distinguishes a truly struck-up specimen from the soft, mushy details of a weakly struck example. These are the qualities that make elite coin collecting a sensory as well as an intellectual experience, and the 1950s penny in top grade delivers all of them with extraordinary impact. The numismatic literature on the 1950s South Lincoln Center is extensive, because the coin's status as a condition rarity has attracted serious research from specialists who have spent careers studying the Lincoln cent series with the kind of focused intensity that most people reserve for academic disciplines, and the insights they have developed about die varieties, production sequences, and survival characteristics give the collector community a rich body of knowledge to draw on when evaluating potential acquisitions. Understanding die varieties, the specific dies used to produce a coin, and the characteristics that distinguish one die from another, adds an additional layer of depth to the 1950s penny story, because different dies produce coins with subtly different characteristics, and some die varieties are known to have produced coins in better average quality than others, making variety attribution an important skill for anyone seriously pursuing this coin. The broader philosophical dimension of collecting coins, like the 1950s penny, is worth reflecting on, because there is something deeply meaningful about the way rare coins connect the present to the past. When you hold a mint state 1950s cent, you are holding an object that was created in the same year that the Korean War began, in the same year that Senator Joseph McCarthy began his notorious investigations, in the same year that the first colored television broadcasts were made in America. And that object has traveled through all of the decades since in a state of perfect preservation, carrying the evidence of its creation moment on its surface in the form of original luster and crisp strike detail that have never been disturbed. That connection to a specific moment in time, that physical continuity with the past, is something that no reproduction or digital image can replicate, and it is the foundation of the emotional and financial value that rare coins carry for the people who collect them with genuine passion and understanding. If you are sitting at home with a collection of old cents and wondering whether any of your 1950s pennies might be worth examining more carefully, the answer is always yes. Examine every coin you have from this era with a good magnifying glass under strong, raking light. Look for coins that display original luster rather than the dull, worn surface of a circulated coin. And if you find something that looks pristine and original, protect it carefully and get it professionally evaluated before you do anything else with it. The $36 million valuation of the finest 1950s wheat pennies is a reminder that the numismatic market rewards knowledge, patience, and the willingness to look carefully at things that most people overlook, and the next great discovery of a coin in this category could come from exactly the kind of ordinary, unexamined collection that most people never think twice about. As we prepare to move into the final chapter of today's extraordinary video, the grand finale that every coin we have covered today has been building toward, I want you to hold the story of the 1950s wheat penny in your mind as a testament to the idea that true rarity, in the coin world as in life, is often quiet and unassuming, waiting patiently for the right moment and the right person to recognize it for what it truly is. The stage is set, the final coin awaits, and I promise you that what comes next will bring this entire extraordinary journey to a conclusion that is worthy of everything that has come before it. Next, 1955 wheat penny, and here we are, the grand finale, the culmination, the closing chapter of one of the most extraordinary journeys through rare coin history that the Coins Explorer has ever taken you on. And I need you to understand something profound before we dive into the story of this remarkable coin, because the 1955 wheat penny is not just the last coin in today's lineup. It is the coin that crystallizes everything we have learned, everything we have felt, and everything we have come to understand about the extraordinary intersection of history, artistry, rarity, and human passion that makes the world of rare coins unlike any other pursuit on Earth. This coin has been valued at $33 million, and every single cent of that valuation is a story of a mint operating at the twilight of a beloved era, a story of coins that survived against the odds to carry their original perfection into the modern age, a story of collectors who devoted their lives and their fortunes to pursuing the finest possible examples of a design that defined American coinage for 50 extraordinary years, and a story that ends, as all great stories must, with a moment of recognition so powerful that it changes the way you see the ordinary world around you forever. Let us begin at the beginning, 1955, a year that vibrates with a particular energy in American cultural memory, because this was the year that rock and roll was electrifying a generation of young Americans, the year that Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus and ignited the civil rights movement, the year that Disneyland opened its gates for the first time, and the year that the Cold War tension between East and West was so thick you could cut it with a knife. In this electric, transformative, deeply significant moment in American history, the Denver Mint was producing Lincoln cents by the millions, stamping them out day after day and night after night in a continuous industrial process that had been running essentially unchanged for decades. And yet, within that process of relentless repetition, something remarkable was happening. The final years of the wheat penny design were ticking away, and with them, the last opportunity to produce what would one day become some of the most coveted coins in the entire Lincoln cent series. The Denver Mint in 1955 had a particular character that distinguished its output from the Philadelphia and San Francisco facilities. The strike characteristics, the luster quality, the die preparation methods, All of these factors combine to give Denver production from this era a distinct personality that specialists can identify immediately, and the finest 1955 D cents bear those Denver characteristics in their most elevated and most beautiful form, displaying the kind of full, complete strike and brilliant original luster that represents the absolute peak of what the mint was capable of producing. The mintage of the 1955 D Lincoln cent was substantial by any ordinary measure. Hundreds of millions of coins were produced. But here is the fundamental truth that separates numismatic thinking from ordinary thinking, and it is a truth that becomes more important with every coin we discuss. Mintage is not the same as availability in high grades, and the gulf between the number of coins produced and the number that survive in mint state condition with original surfaces and full strike quality is so enormous that it essentially creates a different coin at the top end of the quality spectrum, a coin that has almost nothing in common with the millions of ordinary circulated examples of the same date and mint mark. The population of 1955 D Lincoln cent certified in MS66 red or above by the major grading services represents a tiny, tiny fraction of the original mintage. We are talking about a proportion so small that the individual coins in that elite tier are essentially known by the numismatic community, and when a new example of exceptional quality comes to market, it generates genuine excitement and competitive interest that reflects both the coin's intrinsic quality and its extraordinary rarity at that level. Now, 1955 is a year with enormous numismatic significance beyond just the Denver mint production, because this is the year of the legendary 1955 double die penny, one of the most famous and most recognizable error coins in all of American numismatics. Produced at the Philadelphia Mint and displaying a doubling of the obverse design elements, so dramatic and so unmistakable that even non-collectors who have heard about it can recognize it immediately. The fame of the 1955 double die set waves of attention and interest through the entire 1955 Lincoln cent series, and that heightened attention encouraged researchers and collectors to examine Denver mint production from this year with unprecedented intensity, leading to the discovery of varieties, die characteristics, and condition rarities that had previously gone unnoticed and undocumented. The 1955 D penny has its own double die varieties, less dramatic than the famous Philadelphia error, but genuinely significant to specialists who have cataloged the Lincoln cent series with the meticulous attention to detail that characterizes the finest numismatic scholarship, and these Denver double die varieties carry their own premiums in the marketplace, attracting specialist collectors who understand their significance and are willing to pay accordingly. The broader category of die varieties for the 1955 D cent encompasses dozens of distinct die pairs, each with its own production characteristics and survival profile, and for the most dedicated specialists in this area, building a complete collection of 1955 D die varieties in the finest available grades is a pursuit that can span decades and consume enormous resources while delivering extraordinary intellectual and aesthetic satisfaction. The artistry of the wheat penny design itself deserves our full attention and appreciation as we discuss this final coin, because Victor David Brenner's creation is genuinely one of the great achievements of American coin design. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln is rendered with a naturalism and a humanity that no official portrait of a president on a coin had previously approached, capturing something of Lincoln's essential dignity and melancholy in a format so small that the achievement seems almost impossible, and yet there it is on every Lincoln cent, an image so compelling and so perfectly suited to its medium that it has endured for over a century without serious challenge. The wheat stalk reverse complements the Lincoln portrait with an elegance and simplicity that reflects the agrarian values and democratic ideals of the era in which it was designed, and the combination of these two design elements created a coin that is simultaneously a work of art, a historical document, and a functional object of commerce, a combination of purposes that the finest examples of the 1955 D penny fulfill with extraordinary grace and beauty. The collector experience of pursuing a top-grade 1955D wheat penny is one that encompasses research, patience, financial commitment, and the particular kind of excitement that comes from knowing that you are operating at the very top of a competitive field populated by some of the most knowledgeable and passionate individuals in the numismatic world. The research component involves studying population reports, auction records, and dealer inventories to understand the market for this coin thoroughly before making any acquisition decisions, because in a market where individual coins at the top grade are known and tracked by the community, entering a transaction without full information is a significant disadvantage. The patience component involves understanding that the finest known examples of the 1955D penny do not come to market on a regular schedule. They emerge when collectors decide to sell, when estates are settled, when registry set builders decide to upgrade their holdings, and the collector, who is ready to move decisively when the right coin appears, is the one who ultimately acquires the prize. The financial commitment is substantial, but, for those who understand the market, represents an investment in an asset class with a long track record of appreciation, because the finest known Lincoln cents have consistently increased in value over the decades as the collector base has grown globally, and the available supply of top-grade examples has remained fixed. The emotional dimension of acquiring a coin like the 1955D in top mint state is one that veteran collectors describe as one of the most satisfying experiences available in any area of collecting. The feeling of holding an object that combines historical significance, artistic achievement, and extraordinary rarity in a package so small that you can carry it in your pocket is genuinely unique, and the connection to the specific moment in time that the coin represents, that extraordinary year of 1955, with all of its cultural electricity and historical significance, adds a layer of meaning that purely financial valuation cannot capture. For every person watching today who has old coins at home, who has inherited a collection, who has found rolls of old cents at a garage sale or estate auction, the story of the 1955D wheat penny carries a specific and actionable message. Examine your 1955 pennies carefully, look for the D mint mark below the date, hold those coins at an angle under strong light, and look for the cartwheel luster that signals an uncirculated surface. Check for any signs of doubling in the lettering or the portrait, and if you find anything that looks exceptional, protect it immediately and pursue professional evaluation without delay. Because the difference between a common coin and a rare one can be invisible to the untrained eye and yet worth millions to the right buyer. The $33 million valuation of the finest 1955D wheat pennies is the market's acknowledgement of a coin that sits at the intersection of multiple powerful forces, the end of a beloved design era, the production characteristics of a great mint at a specific moment in its history, the survival statistics of a coin subjected to 70 years of attrition, and the passionate demand of a global collector community that knows exactly what it wants and is willing to invest enormously to get it. As we bring today's incredible journey to its close, a journey that has taken us through 6 of the most extraordinary coins in American numismatic history, from the wartime miracle of the 1944D steel penny through the final twilight glory of the 1955D wheat penny, I want you to carry with you something more than just information about valuable coins. I want you to carry the understanding that the world is full of hidden value, that knowledge is the key that unlocks it, and that the habit of looking carefully at ordinary things and asking extraordinary questions is the foundation of every great discovery ever made. The wheat penny, humble, copper, 1-cent face value, is the perfect symbol of that truth, because in the hands of someone without knowledge it is nothing, and in the hands of someone who understands what they are looking at, it can be worth a fortune that defies imagination. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for joining us today on the Coins Explorer. If this journey has ignited a passion for rare coins in you, if it has sent you rushing to examine your own collection with new eyes and new knowledge, if it has made you see the ordinary world a little differently, then please smash that like button right now. Share this video with every coin enthusiast and every curious person you know. Subscribe to the Coins Explorer so you are always the first to know when we uncover the next extraordinary story from the world of rare coins. And leave us a comment below telling us which coin from today's videos surprised you the most, because your engagement, your curiosity, and your passion for this incredible hobby are what make the Coins Explorer the community it is. And we will see you in the next video, where the treasures waiting to be discovered are even more extraordinary than the ones we found today.